Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for watching this video and this presentation regarding my research project. My name is Maria Fernanda Parra. I am part of the foreign language teaching program at UNAT. This is part of the Escuela Ciencias de la Educación. And the title to my research project was Analyzing Oral Fluency Through Interest-Based Open-Ended Questions, an action research study at Colegio Víctor Félix Gómez Nova in Piedecuesta, Santander, during the second semester of 2025. Thank you so much for your attention. We're going to be presenting this research, which was qualitative action research design. I was the author, I was the main author of this project. And my advisor was tutor Danny Cuellar Aragon. Thank you so much, tutor, for being so patient with me. And my keywords were fluency, confidence, open-ended questions, English, and participation. So, the statement of the problem was that at Colegio Víctor Félix Gómez Nova in Piedecuesta, we could notice and we could see a lot of students who are validating their high school years. And they often demonstrate some comprehension of English. They do understand English. They understand a little bit of what we are saying. They have a grasp of understanding of what they listen. But then when they are trying to speak, it's very difficult for them. They struggle a lot. They have a lot of issues. They don't have enough confidence to speak. So it's difficult for them to participate in class, to complete sentences. It's difficult for them to perform English in conversational environments or scenarios. So this study aims to explore why open-ended questions and interest-based questions allow better responses and how they can be integrated to enhance and to develop better oral participation. As Gomez and Sandoval 2021 say, and Castañeda Trujillo and Aguirre Hernandez, they do agree that anxiety, fear of making mistakes, and low self-confidence are key factors that significantly affect spontaneous participation in English classes. So all of these negative emotions and negative feelings in a student, such as fear, anxiety, depression sometimes, fear of making mistakes, these feelings are definitely not good for the students, and they make them feel worse during their learning process. So it's more difficult for them to learn and to produce. This study examines whether open-ended and interest-based questions can effectively support the development of fluency among students who are in the process of completing their high school education. So we found out, and this has been a project that I have been carrying out during the past semesters. We noticed that when we use open-ended questions and questions based on the students' likes, the students' interests, the students' real life, when these questions are related to the students' real life, they are prompted to speak. They are more likely to participate. They like to talk a little bit extra just because the topic that we are using during the class is interesting to them. So, based on this problem and based on this identification of the problem, we have some objectives. The general objective of this study is to explore students' oral fluency in English by integrating open-ended and interest-based questions into classroom practice. And some other specific objectives, such as to identify students' attitudes toward speaking activities in English, to implement a set of open-ended interest-related questions to encourage oral participation, and to analyze how open-ended and interest-related questions influence the students' oral fluency. So as you can see, as I was mentioning before, what we are trying to do here is to identify those characteristics of open-ended and interest-based questions that make students participate more, how these questions affect the students, how these questions motivate students, how we can use these questions to make English more interesting and more useful for the students' real life and real life scenarios. The literature review is grounded in communicative and interactionist theories of second language acquisition, which argue that oral fluency develops most effectively when learners use the language for authentic and meaningful communication. So we studied and we reviewed the literature that talked about positive emotions and meaningful topics, meaningful ideas being carried into a classroom to make learning more meaningful for a student. If a student sees that what they are learning is useful for their lives, it's more likely for them to use the language. So in number one, we use communicative language teaching. It emphasizes real life communication as the core of language learning. So we had to study the communicative language teaching ideas and what authors have said about this. We also studied the Krashen's affective filter. Hypothesis states that anxiety, fear of mistakes, and low confidence can block speech production. This is explained by Krashen, and we followed his ideas and we followed his statements regarding negative emotions affecting students, so that we based our study in these ideas. Based on Vygotsky's sociocultural perspective, he talked about this in 1978. Interaction enables learners to co-construct meaning within their zone of proximal development. This means that interaction and collaborative work and collaborative activities help students to be better and to learn better and to be better within classroom learning, right? So during our study, we also help students develop a lot of collaborative activities. All right, the methodology. We have here four main methodology characteristics or areas that we studied and that we used during this study. So the first one was action research. This was a classroom-based research method where the teacher investigates a problem in their own context. So this study was we immersed in the students' situation, in the students' real life. We identified a problem, and then we work on we work on these activities on this investigation to give a solution to this problem that we had identified. Then we had a qualitative approach. These research focus that collects, sorry, a research focus that collects non-numerical data. So we were collecting perceptions, behaviors, and experiences. We really like to talk to our students during this investigation, and they let us know how they felt, how they were experiencing this intervention and this investigation. We like to hear our students a lot, and we were very interested in their opinions because their opinions were the main center and the main point of this investigation. Then we had a data triangulation. So the use of field diaries, observations, questionnaires, focus groups, and oral recordings to cross-check the fluency program. So basically, we used field diaries. We took notes. We were very attentive to what the students said. So we did some questionnaires at the beginning of the investigation and then at the end, because we were very interested in what the student had to say. And we also did some focus groups so that the students could express what they were feeling and how the experience was for them. And finally, we had an interpretative phenomenological analysis, which is a method of analyzing qualitative data that explores participants' lived experiences. So, as I was telling you before, the main idea of this investigation was to get to know or to learn from the students' experiences when they were prompted to speak using open-ended and interest-based questions. Okay. Now let's talk about the results. So after all of this investigation and then after the intervention, we had great results. More students volunteered to speak throughout the 5 sessions and answer extended questions. So they were talking a little bit more. So they went from talking 5 to 8 seconds only, and they started talking a little bit more. So that was it was now 12 to 20 seconds of a speech, which is so good for these students because most of them were a level A2 or B1 of English, but most of them were very new to English. So the fact that they were talking a little bit more, even when they were scared, even when they were not sure, even when they were feeling super fearful or anxious before this intervention, having this student to speak a little bit extra was a great achievement. Then we could see through questionnaires and focus groups that students expressed positive attitudes toward the strategy. So they really like to talk about soccer. They really like to talk about music. Some of them like to talk about politics or politicians or the situations happening around the world. So it was super interesting to see how different these students were and the different interests that they had, and each of them liked to speak a little bit about something different. So it was so cool and so good to see how the differences in these students regarding their interests made them speak more and talk more. There was a reduction of fear and judgment, longer and more enthusiastic speech, and students would speak without worrying about correctness. So, what we could see at the beginning of the intervention was that a lot of students felt anxious because there was a yes or no question. So, if they were prompted with a yes or no question, they were scared that they would fail or that they would not answer correctly. But in this intervention, we could see that when you ask students about their own interest, they are less scared to fail because there is not a correct answer. We are asking for opinion. It's an open question. So there are a lot of ways of answering, right? So when we prompted students with their own likes, their own topics of interest, their own ideas, their own opinions, they were less stressed. And when you take away the stress from the classroom, the students start responding better and they start answering to this intervention in a positive way. And finally, most of the students reported that motivation increased when discussing personal interests. So, as I was telling you before, if they were asked about soccer, if they were asked about food that they liked, if they were asked about the music that they liked, if they were asked about fashion or makeup, all those interesting topics made them speak more. All right. Then we had the this is a discussion. This is regarding the discussion. So the main idea of this discussion is that interest-based and open-ended questions positively influence the students' oral fluency in English. The findings confirm that when learners are given the opportunity to talk about their likes, interests, and personally meaningful topics, they participate more, they feel more confident, they express longer sentences, longer speech, they talk for longer periods, and they feel more confident about what they are saying. And the results that strongly align with these results strongly align with the theoretical perspective supporting this study. So Crushing and Vygotsky's ideas, both of them align with the idea of this study and with the results of this study. So it's definite that when you input positive emotions and positive ideas into the students, they respond positively. The results showed a clear decrease in nervousness and hesitation. So students were less afraid of making mistakes, as I was telling you before. For example, some of my students said, I feel less stressed because I know a lot about soccer. I know a lot about football. I know a lot about sports. So I know that what I'm saying is correct, right? Or at least they felt like it was correct because they were really interested into the topic. Some other students were very motivated about the music life and the music area. So when we talk about K-pop or when we talked about pop, which are genres that take a lot of attention and they have a lot of fans all around the world. People were motivated. They like to talk about their favorite bands, their favorite singers, their favorite people in the industry of music, and they felt less nervous because they felt interested in the topic. So, because open-ended questions have no single correct answer, as students felt safe. It's super important to make our students feel safe. If they don't feel safe with us, they will not participate properly or they will not actively participate in our classes. Okay. Then we have some conclusions. Oral fluency improved noticeable. Students demonstrated longer and more continuous speech, fewer pauses, and improved coherence, which was the main idea of this investigation. We wanted to have our students speaking. They do understand what we were saying. They do understand English, but it was so difficult for them to produce speech. So we could see an improvement in the speech and in the oral participation of these students, and the opportunity to expand on their own ideas allow them to organize thoughts more naturally and speak with greater fluidity. 71% of participants reported gains in fluency. 86% of participants felt less anxious and more confident. 57% of the participants started using more connectors while speaking, which was something so nice to see because before we could see a lot of students talking without connectors. They didn't know how to make a proper coherent sentence, but after being more confident and feeling more safe, they could use more connectors. So that was very, very good. And some final recommendations for future researchers or future teachers that would like to use this research project as a tool for future classes, we would like to recommend integrating open-ended questions more systematically into speaking sessions to promote spontaneous oral production. We need to stop using only yes or no questions. We can use open-ended questions. The students are also a source of information and we can learn from them. They are a source of ideas, a source of opinion. Design interest-based speaking activities that align with the students' personal preferences. When we focus on the preferences of these students, their working scenarios, when the topics are related to preferences, likes, opinions, ideas, real life scenarios, students are more likely to participate. Implement continuous assessment using rubrics, self-assessment, and peer feedback to help students monitor their fluency development. And finally, expand training for teachers on the pedagogical value of open-ended questions. It is important to train teachers to be able to use open-ended questions and interest-based questions. It's definitely not a difficult topic to learn, but we need to practice and we need to train ourselves and train other teachers to be able to include these questions into their agendas. Okay, and these would be the most important references. We are missing some of them here, but these are the most important ones. That will be all from me. Thank you so much for your attention today, and I hope you have an amazing rest of your day.